Hey, Darren Stehle here, the publisher of Self-Mastery on Substack. Something I'm excited to be able to do on this platform specifically is to deliver a deeper understanding, a better way or different variations of taking some of the personal development, the self-mastery practices, the efficient productivity practices that I'm going to be writing and publishing for you to make use of in your own lives so that you can be happier and thrive in your life and your business, is to use video. Now, I also publish a podcast called Think Queerly, but I really want to keep the distinction between this platform on Substack for self-mastery very specific to mind mastery and efficient productivity for changemakers and creatives, whether you're LGBTQ or otherwise. Whereas my podcast, Think Queerly, I speak more specifically about empowerment for LGBTQ individuals and history and social justice and political issues. Now, below this video, I've got a short version which outlines how to use the 3 E's of self-mastery. This is a framework I'm developing, or I have developed, to help you create greater efficiency, happiness, and success in your life. You've possibly already read my last article before this one, where I talk about the 3 E's, but I use it within the framework, or I use it to speak specifically about productivity. The beautiful thing about these 3 E's is that it's a framework built from neuroscience and the understanding of coaching and how we think and behave and how we can master and manage our emotions, our energy, and our enthusiasm. Those are the 3 E's: emotions, energy, and enthusiasm, so that we basically have more control of what's happening in our lives. And when I say what's happening and control of what's happening, we can't control what's happening outside of us. Like, you can't control the weather, you can't control what other people do, and unless you lock them up in a cage. But even then, you could not necessarily control what they're going to do with inside that cage. This is going down a really dark path all of a sudden, isn't it? Be that as it may, the idea is the core of self-mastery is the self-awareness that you have of who you are and the self-management you have of the ways in which you can manage prediction and response in your life. And that's very much a neuroscientific way of looking at the world. So, prediction and response. Think of how a computer works. There's a software that powers a program, and it's expecting you, the user, to input some information. When you input that information, that's the prediction that the software uses, and it creates an appropriate response. It runs an algorithm, it runs a computation, and it spits out the answer, the response. Well, we do the same thing in our lives. We show up in the world, somebody says something, it triggers us. We drive our car and there's a whole bunch of traffic, and we can either let that bother us unconsciously, get all upset, or we can look at the traffic and say, well, I've been wanting to listen to this podcast, so I'm just going to play that on my phone that's connected to my stereo, and voila, I'm going to be able to get some education en route, and it'll distract me from the discord, the frustration of so much traffic that is blocking my passage from getting from point A to point B. That's kind of the best metaphor I can use to explain this. So earlier this week, one of my former clients, Lachlan, posted this interesting story or message on LinkedIn, how his Birmingham Unicorns Cricket Club, an LGBTQ focused and friendly cricket club in Birmingham, the United Kingdom, they just played miserably. There were some problems on the field with other players, and they got through that, and he was deflated. He was defeated, and really negative emotions, right? Like, if it's your team or you're part of a team, sometimes it's very challenging when you lose, when you have higher expectations. Then on Monday, because they play it on the weekend, on a Monday they have their regular practices and training so they can improve their skills and their technical skills and their tactical approach to playing. 3 new people came, and those 3 new people brought an energy and an enthusiasm and the emotions that they brought because they were excited, they maybe hadn't played cricket before, they were open-minded, they were ready to learn, and they were engaged. And that entire dynamic influenced the rest of the team, including Lachlan as well. So what this made me realize is that occasionally our lives are like the hero's journey, and the hero's journey is a classic Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1 is the challenge, the problem that the hero has to face, and Act 2 is the longest part of the story, right? That's the journey, that's the struggle, that's the ups and downs to getting to deal with the problem or the struggle, and Act 3 is the resolution. Whatever happens, whether it's a good ending or a bad ending, it's just the problem has been resolved, and that's the end of the story. What I recognized is the application of the 3 E's for self-mastery, emotions, energy, and enthusiasm, can be used as a tool, as a kind of a mini practice, almost like pulling out an app and going, if I input these variables, what can I notice from what happened in this situation? And how might I better prepare myself, prediction and response, to a similar kind of event in the future? Now know this, self-awareness is one thing. Self-management is learning what we can do, but then putting into practice different habits, different behaviors, different ways of thinking, different perspectives, post-it notes or elastic bands around your wrist to remind you of what you want to be aware of. Because going back to this metaphor of the brain like a supercomputer, there's so much going on, from how is it that I'm breathing and knowing when to blink my eyes, and why am I moving my body in response to what I'm saying, and the emotions that I'm imparting to the words that I'm thinking as I record this video. I'm not consciously thinking of all of those initiating programs that keep me alive and allow me to do all these things and read off my notes and look into the camera and deliver this message to you and think critically at the same time about, well, how do I look? How do I sound? Am I being coherent? There's a lot going on, and when you start to think about the complexities and the many computations that are going on in our brain, it's an easy leap to understand why when you lose a game, or somebody cuts you off in traffic, or your boss or a colleague says something to you that just pisses you off, you get so angry, and you automatically go down a reaction instead of a response. Now, it's still prediction and response, because if the prediction is, somebody cut me off in traffic, I'm going to get so fucking angry at them and I'm going to honk my horn, but you can change the response, okay? The prediction will remain the same. Someone cuts me off in traffic. But now we're doing a software or pattern interrupt. We're going to say, hey, I've got a new awareness here, and I want to update my mental programming. Now, it's going to take some time to train the system. So coming back to this framework of the 3 E's, this is a nice lens or a framework through which you can look at what happened. So emotions, energy, enthusiasm. Think of your emotions. When you respond instead of reacting to life's events, you will have a greater impact on others. You're going to have a happier life as a result. You're going to be able to influence and impact others, because others are going to respond to you, because your positive emotional state, your empowering attitude will, whether you call it create attraction, it also allows for compassion and understanding and empathy and a host of other emotions that are welcoming and demonstrate acceptance, connection, and care, another aspect of our mammalian brain and a neurobiological from a neurobiological perspective, how we relate to other people in a caring and understanding way that creates bonds of trust, and even tribes, the groups to which we want to belong and feel safe and secure. So from an emotional standpoint, when you know your triggers and you understand how to pull yourself back from the brink, pull yourself back from redlining into reaction and losing your cool, losing your state of mind, that is a core skill of self-mastery, and it takes practice. The first step is self-awareness. The second step is management and education, learning what you can do, implementing habits and practices. Energy is the second E of self-mastery. So your emotions affect your energy, And your resulting or available energy, both mental, cognitive, and physical energy, can affect your feelings. Emotions and feelings are different. Understanding what your emotions are, they're the drives that move you to take action in many ways, whether that be an empowering emotion like love, say, or care, lust, or whether it be more an emotion of anger or rage or sadness. Knowing what emotions empower you, lift you up, knowing what emotions drag you down is vital to the understanding of how often these emotions play out in your life and where you want to focus your intention. Like in anything in life, let's take small steps. Let's do one thing at a time. Maybe focus on one kind of emotion that you want to experience more of. That's actually another point here, a better way than focusing on the negative. Like, oh, I don't want to feel anger as often as I do. Well, then you're just focused on the anger. Not to neglect that. You might want to look at it, but what is the corresponding emotion that you would prefer to have? And it will probably be easier to focus on that at first, and then to also pay attention to the triggers that make you angry and how you can perceive that in a different way. And our perception is our intellectual brain that is going to create the feelings. Because you could decide, okay, in this moment, take a breath. We're being conscious. We're using our thinking brain. I recognize this is something that normally upsets me or makes me angry. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to step away. I'm going to tell this person I can't speak to them right now because this is upsetting. I would like to address the situation, but maybe when I and you can do this in a thoughtful and compassionate way in which we understand and support each other. A final point is, time of day. Like, what kind of emotions bring you the most energy at different times of day? You might have lots of bubbly emotions earlier in the day, but you also might be a very slow to rise to get going person in the day. So understanding your cycles, your energy cycles, and how that also influences your energy is really important. So the third E is enthusiasm. Self-mastery, when observed by others, or when you're sort of looking in the metaphorical mirror and seeing how far you've come, or how you want to decide how you're showing up in the world and what it is you want to take on next. Self-mastery is most recognized when you enjoy living life to the fullest. It's not so much about being or just thinking positive. It is about seeing the world with greater equanimity, more balance, and taking that in and recognizing that you have the capacity and the choice to say, this could be difficult right now, but I can still appreciate my life. I can still appreciate what I have. I can still appreciate my friendships and so on. So enthusiasm is felt as having the motivation, which is a kind of emotional drive to do what's most important, what's most meaningful to you, what gives you satisfaction. And doing that without compromise, and that allows you to be authentically who you are. For myself as a gay man, part of the LGBT community, identified as a queer thinker, being that way openly increases my enthusiasm for what it is I do in life. The question to think about is, how do your energy and emotions influence your enthusiasm? Can you be enthusiastic without a supporting emotional state, or when you have no energy left to give? You could have low-level and high-level enthusiasm, even though that seems almost contradictory. But what I mean is, you could be at the end of your day really tired, recognizing that you've had a really great day, a productive day, being grateful for whatever joyful, happy moments, whatever successes or wins that you've had. You might be ready for bed, but the enthusiasm is the sort of the positive framing and awareness of what has happened in your day. So you can see how all of these three E's, emotion, energy, enthusiasm, intersect. It's like a whirling dervish. Each one affects the other. Each one cultivates and supports the other. It's not about jacking them all up. It is about being aware that sometimes one is going to be lower than the other, but because one is lower than the other doesn't mean it's necessarily depleted. What you want to be mindful of is if you have absolutely no enthusiasm, if your emotions are always negative, well, that's perception. What do you want to change? What do you want to practice managing, so that you'll move to that state of the habits and behaviors have become rote, have become unconscious, regular parts of your life. That is the new response to dealing with whatever predictions are showing up in your life. If you lose control of one of these 3 E's, it's like a domino effect on the remaining 2. Part 1 of this is noticing. Noticing is your self-awareness. Notice what's going on. How are you feeling? How are you thinking? What are you seeing? What's happening in your various environments, the environment of your mind, the environment of your workspace, the environment of the greater world around you, the environment of the technology you're interacting with if you're on Instagram or TikTok. Part 2 is making the choice to do something to improve your state, and that's your self-management. And part 3 is seeing the 3 E's, emotions, energy, and enthusiasm, play out in your life, and getting better at adjusting more quickly and efficiently to recenter yourself. That's a core aspect of self-mastery, because there's no such thing as there's no such thing as balance in life. There is a balancing act. There are so many things that are happening that are always throwing us a little bit off kilter. It is our self-awareness and self-management that help us sort of straddle on a teeter-totter to have this balancing act of trying to somewhere be in that position of the middle, which I would call self-mastery. So to wrap up, 2 questions for you to ponder and consider. You might want to write this down in your journal and think about it overnight, maybe respond in the morning. Here's how you're going to apply this framework in your life. So ask yourself, what's the most challenging of these 3 E's in your life right now? Are your emotions, is it your energy, or is it your enthusiasm that you would identify as the challenge that you want to notice and pay attention to, and perhaps consider some habits and behaviors so that you can improve the management of that E and thus begin to create a different response to the predictions in your life? Number 2. Yeah, I've kind of addressed this with what I just said. What is one small step you can take to raise your awareness of one of the 3 E's of self-mastery? This adds to actually what I just said, so that it's not overwhelming to do this practice. What's a small step? Once you've identified one of the E's that you want to pay attention to because you think it's the most challenging in your life right now, what's one small thing you can do to raise your awareness about that E, be it emotion, energy, or enthusiasm? I would love to know what you think of this framework, what your answers are to these 2 questions, and if you have any further questions, this is the place to post your questions, and I would be happy to interact with you. Last point before we wrap up. This is kind of an introduction to invite you to a webinar, a free webinar, where I'm going to be going even deeper into the training of this 3E framework, but specifically how you can now apply this to your productivity as a creator, as a change maker, so that you can still have a great life and love the business that you're building, or love the project that you're working on, whether it be a book or whatever it is that you do. You're going to discover how to maximize each of the 3 E's to optimize your production and increase your happiness and peace of mind and freedom. And that, for me, is success. Those 3 things: peace of mind, happiness, and freedom, in doing, if not what you love, but something that brings you great meaning and satisfaction. So the webinar, How to Manage the 3 E's of Efficient Productivity for Creators and Change Makers, is going to happen on August 17th. That's a Wednesday, from 1 to 2 p.m., 1300 hours, Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. The link is in the article below this video. Register. This is going to be a very powerful and potentially transformative webinar for you. It will be interactive. I'll be delivering the content like this, but I want to help you through engagement by answering your questions and helping you define the practices that you can put into play so that you can get the results you want. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.